Hi, I'm John O'Donnell, been Dave Lee's engineer for quite a long time now. As he will testify, and I will equally testify. Just a couple of things to show you. One of them is sort of get a sound like in a city big fun. Another is what I'd like to see happen to the sampler in Logic EXS, which I think at the moment is very slow to use. Um, Another thing, a couple of things I might mention are about trying to speed Logic up, the use of colours, things like that. Having your master output always at the top of your arrange page so you can bounce things down quickly. Uh, Mixing, maybe a few mixing tips, something like that. Anything I can really and that I've picked up and forgotten over the years. Okay, this is a Doug Willis track, that famous. Is it Home and Away or Neighbours? He was really good at music anyway, Doug Willis, called Doug Swana. And just a quick bit about how we mix. This is one of, we've been talking about the mixing from stems and things, but this is one of the tracks. This is what it looks like before it goes to stems. So it's quite a sort of busy arrangement, especially when you unhide everything and see all the constituent parts. A lot of these have been bounced down to make stereo files in Logic before we even go out to the desk. As you can see, it's quite complicated. And you can see my colours as well. I have to mention colours. I'll try and use colours, the same colours, bizarre though it sounds, in every different track. So if we come back to something in a year or 2 years or something, we know that the drums are always going to, there's the drums, they're green or something, the vocals are yellow. Yeah, it's just another little thing that helps speed things up. Another thing we do as well, if we're mixing inside the computer, it all goes to one stereo out, and I always put that, I create a track and put that at the top of the page, so you can always bounce things down quickly. You know, you can solo lock things, do whatever you want, and it's always there ready to bounce. That saves a bit of time. Our mixing internally is pretty much done as we would a proper mixing desk. I mean, we've always worked on mixing desks, so the environment will sort of reflect it. All our channels have got their own EQs. We use a lot of waves, EQs on the when we're mastering. We'll use waves limiters, or that waves LM4, which is fantastic. It's just got presets like I don't know, Spank or something like that, and when you put it on, you really do notice a difference. But we'll mix everything. We'll send. We'll use effects on buses. Well, we'll use some on their own channels. Inserts like that camel fat. That's a pretty good filter. Or else we'll send things to buses where we've got all our effects. You know, like the Logic, reverbs, delays, all sorts of delays. We use the buses for comps as well, submixes I mean, where we put a lot of things. There's a brass, and then that's like all. That's a relatively small amount of like samplers would use. We use soft synths in here as well, but you know, quite often we'll replace them. Like I think we originally had the sax in this as a soft synth, and then got the real one to replace it. Yeah, mixing wise, I suppose you just after a certain experience, you know roughly what area you're going into. We start with drums, try and get all the drums sounding pretty good, all reverbs on them if it's percussion and things like that. Then add the bass and synths and things like that. Vocals are generally last. We'll leave it, and then if the track sounds alright without vocals, we try and, you know, add the vocals in and try and make it, not destroy it. These are some, what's his name, Zeke, isn't it? Yeah, it was good, yeah. Some African style harmonies and things. I think we put...
Those other vocals, isn't there? Those are vocals in this.
That are Tarzan, yeah. And that's made of lots of different Pete Simpson singing that one basically. Here it is again, looped and filtered, which adds quite a bit of tension to it. This as well is one of those tracks where there's a lot of things playing the same riff, which makes it quite powerful. But when you're mixing, obviously you've got to try and give each its own frequency, or else you'll end up with and a bit of panning and different effects, reverb and things like that, or else you're not going to be able to pick it out.
Often mixing tracks where everything's playing the same thing is a lot harder than if they're playing different parts, because there's obviously a lot less room in the mix when they're all doing exactly the same stuff. So it's easier with live instruments. If you've got a lot of synths playing the same thing, it's a nightmare. Which I think with this we did originally. We ended up replacing it with live stuff.
Okay, this is the same track after it's gone through the desk, been separated, and gone through our Tube Tech EQs and had like lexicon reverb and all the effects and desk EQs and things like that. We bring it back in as stems, as separate as we need to, really. If we're, you know, quite happy with the drums, or a bass with a bass effect, then generally we don't separate them out. But obviously, you know, you could spend a lot of time separating them out, and then you'd have everything. But you know, there's a balance. Especially for me, I'm always asked what I've been doing. So here it's all going to output 7 and 8, which is where we've got, as I was mentioning earlier, the waves limiter and waves EQ. You can see this limiter doesn't look like it's working particularly hard, but if I push bypass, then you should hear quite a it's just a really good thing, I think, for bringing it all together. Sometimes it doesn't work on certain tracks and you have to use a normal limiter or something like that, but I don't know, more and more music we're getting now is all really spanked up high. There's no peaks in the waveforms anymore, and to be honest, and Dave DJs a lot, so we have to try and compete, unfortunately, and get everything as loud as possible, especially if you're DJing off CD. You don't want your track to be the quietest compared to someone else's, you know. DJs just won't play it. But yeah, here it is all back in. So we do, although we get the mix as good as we can on the desk, we do further alterations, and once you've got it like this, you know, you can come back to it in a month and it's going to sound the same. It's not like you have to, you know, get the desk up again. It's never going to sound the same. So you can give it a while, and then you'll come back to something and you'll hear, oh my God, you know, the bass is far too loud. It's quite a luxury to do, I suppose. It's quite good for people mixing in stems, because you can come back to things and some things become quite easily apparent and some things don't.
This is the instrumental, isn't it, or the dub?
Oh yeah, it's a dub, yeah. That's a soft synth, isn't it? That was that ARP Odyssey, I think, which we spent ages trying to get the modulation right. I won't bore you with the little tracks of automation, but sort of sounds quite 70s.
We often have trouble with the modulation on soft synths. It's quite hard. I mean, obviously with the real synth, putting modulation, we like to use modulation, those sort of effects on the synth. And
well, we use compared to the Juno or Jupiter, it's much harder. I mean, we use Reactor quite a lot, and Predator and things like that, and it's always. I mean. Shouldn't really complain because you get so much, you know, different sounds, but every different synth, it's, you know, features in different areas. It's not like the old-fashioned analog ones where you know exactly you've got a modulation envelope or something like that, or the Juno and Jupiter specifically are very good for that. You've just got a little slider that you can move up that will affect the amount of modulation, and, you know, an LFO that will affect the speed. Quite easy to do things like that. On old analog synths, but the new ones, yeah, it's a bit more haphazard and frustrating for poor little Dave when.
Very sad.
Yeah, and he said, "Why doesn't this sound like that '70s record, John?"
The beach of thought. But I mean, I do think that, you know, we try and mix using the soft synths with it because we've got a lot of gear. We tend to try and use it as much as possible. So, you know, we use soft synths, and I mean, what's the soft synth sound, for example, that sound like the one on that very basic Logic synth we use quite a lot, the Sandcastle type sound.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some great sounds in soft synths, and very, you know, that more electronic thing, and they're very velocity sensitive, so you can build up a intensity by increasing the velocity, and no, they're good things. But I think combining that with some, you know, with the Juno, the Jupiter, and the Virus, and whatever, you get a bit of a richer texture than you would do if you were just using them. But it depends what sort of music you're making. I mean, we tend to make stuff with quite a lot of music in it. So I think also something I tend to do a lot when I'm doing the arrangement is I keep playing the track and do lots of stuff in Logic just using touch. I have it on touch rather than drawing it in. I quite like to do it manually and, like, you know, put effects on and add delay, just like put it on as I'm playing the track, and rather than draw it in, then I will fine tune what I've done live, and, you know, if I've got the delay overhanging for too long or whatever, I will you know, obviously edit that. But I quite like to do stuff while the track's playing and feeling, oh, that feels like that clap could do with a delay on it, or, you know, it'd be nice to increase the reverb on that guitar when it goes into that section, and just do it as you you know, as you hear it, put it on rather than draw it on. You know, drawing it on's okay, but I do think it's quite nice to also just actually, you know, do it organically. You know, like in the old days when we used to use digital mixdowns, I suppose it wasn't about drawing things on, and though obviously it doesn't matter which way you do it to get a good result. But I think sometimes it's twiddling, even if you're twiddling a mouse rather than actually a knob, it's still you're hearing when it's getting loud enough, and you keep it there and you put it down again is better than just purely just drawing in a line. Over to you, darling.
Well, I was gonna say about EXS actually, and a plea to Apple to make it a bit faster, because it's a pain in the arse really. We use it quite a lot, and we've got quite a big library now, but it's so slow. If we're sampling things and I cut up a drum beat or something like that, and I want to put it in the sampler, or anything like bits of an old record or something, then I have to make its own audio file. Then I'll have to go to the EXS screen, go to edit. This is going to be as painful for you not as it is for me. Go to edit, instrument, new, zone, multiple samples, get all my samples in there, and then save it. And then even after saving it, it doesn't even appear as the instrument. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. What I would like to see is that I could select multiple regions, any regions I want, and these are anything, and just push one button somewhere, and automatically I'd have an EXS instrument. If it was just one region, then it would just be a spread. That sound would be on a spread, no questions asked. And if it was more than one, then it would ask me, do you want it chromatically, key by key, or do you want to choose how you map these things out? I think that would save me about half an hour every day, I reckon. Another thing I was going to show you was this sound, which is sort of might recognise as something similar to In a City, Big Fun, and there are various follow-ups that sounded quite similar to Big Fun. So this is the classic
really good
90s In the City sound. That's what it sounds like from this Yamaha lately bass, and then we just sort of EQ it very drastically. You just sort of make it very toppy.
They're great for when they do sometimes
and middly.
Parties. They book a house DJ.
And reverb, of course.
They just want a wedding DJ. But we didn't want them to sing as a cool name.
And
But I mean, I've done a few
should have
of them,
some
and
delay
now
here as
they're
well.
a lot wiser to actually what's required.
And that's, as you know, the records intimately, it sounds pretty much like it. Now, if I take all the stuff off,
Even
it doesn't really sound like it to start with.